All right, so tell me if this sounds like you. You're spending years trying to figure out what your visual style is. What's the best camera to buy? Have you perfected the cove lighting? How do I execute the Wes Anderson dolly move? Many of us, not all of us, believe that if we just land our visual style, everything would take care of itself. But from my experience as a director and commercial DP, visual style is pretty much one of the last things we think about when building a relationship with a client, project, or what have you. It's part of it, but not as much weight as we put here on YouTube. And even amongst the crazy times in our industry today, what I've seen that has consistently brought in work from clients or agencies, keeps the door open in this industry, is how you show up. How do you solve problems? How do you collaborate with companies like this? So with all that being said, I just want to share with you all some of the thoughts I've been writing down and really experiencing over my time as a filmmaker, and why I think professionalism is more important than your visual style. Okay, what's up everyone? I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Joshua Martin. I do many things, but for the context of this video that you're watching, and it's the context as a whole for this channel, I am a commercial director and cinematographer, and I work with a quad of 4 other directors. You might know us as Sunny 16. You can check out our work here. So that's pretty much the backdrop I am going to be speaking from as I unveil some of these statements I'm going to be making in this video. So I'm not trying to attack anyone's career. This is not so much about being hot takes. This is me just being conscious of, one, the YouTube space doesn't really glorify this type of content. So I would greatly appreciate if you would drop a comment, like, share this if there's any value in this video. And then 2 is, I always say this: if you don't see the content that's out there, make the content that you want to see. And so that's what I'm doing here. So yeah, again, if you have any professional experiences that you want to share in the comments below, I would love to read them. I want this to be sort of a forum for those who are so enamored by what I'm going to talk about, finding your visual style and how that can be overwhelming for a lot of people. Is that, I want this to be a place where they can come read and be reassured that there's other things to work on aside from visual style as a filmmaker and director. It's definitely part of it, but let's just get into it. Your visual style is just a reference, and that is going to be hard for some people to say. Other people do have a particular style that's unique to them. Now, we've all started out mimicking our favorite filmmakers: Deakins, Chivo, Bradford Young, Fincher. They all have an imprint on us. I think mimicking can be a very powerful learning tool, as we all have to mimic at some point to figure out what we're even doing in this space anyway. How do we use the camera? How do we use lighting? We've all done it before. And the more information that we have in this space, it gets harder and harder to stand out, to jump out in this style, and having a style, that is. And so I personally think that a style is a number of things, but in our space today, if you get stuck on thinking that this style that you've learned from someone else, and you haven't grown that, or you haven't added anything to that, or really completely flipped it on its head, and you start to say that it is yours, that is unfortunately dishonest, and it becomes harder and harder to step out of that space if you're so gun-ho on that particular look. We know that trends tend to rise up and fade away quick. Standing out is really difficult, and having a voice is really difficult. And that's why visual style alone isn't the best thing, in my opinion, that's going to get you more work. It might get you recognized on Instagram, Threads, YouTube. You might get comments, and you might get a job here and there, but you'll quickly find yourself stuck in a rut, because how do you move on from that? And I've run into that before. I believe style is a toolbox, and the best filmmakers know when to pull out the right tool for the story that's in front of them. Why visual style isn't enough anymore? We are living in the most democratized era of filmmaking. We can learn anything we want at our fingertips from platforms like Skillshare. This is not a Skillshare ad. Platforms like Skillshare, YouTube, Academy, so many different types of, underground courses, from LUTs, color grading, camera movement, lighting, anything. We have it all. And that's fantastic. There's no better time to learn a tool like filmmaking than it is today. But quickly that becomes a plateau. Everybody's here at one point, and you could probably do that skill that the next filmmaker does, but they're getting the jobs and you're not. And again, I don't have everything figured out, but this is the one of the issues again when you just focus on your visual style. But what could you do against the overwhelming wave of a trend that's currently happening? I don't know what trend is currently happening, but to be honest, the uncommon answer is actually going against that trend. Now, here's a perfect example. Some of you have seen this, but some of you haven't. I'll link in the description below as well. 2016, we made a commercial disguised as a documentary a few years ago, it's going up 2 years now. It's called The Last Barf Bag. And this was a heartwarming story. It was unique. It was strange. It was simple. To this day, it's actually accumulated about 13 awards, from a Lion to a Grand Prix. And it's really the first successful piece of work that we've made as a team. And the reason why it stood out once it was going through the different agencies and different events and film festivals is because at the time, and it still is what's happening today, is that most commercials are dark, moody, kind of serious, emotional ties, which are beautiful. We all love that. But the Barf Bag was human. It was a spark of life. It was quirky. It was so many different things that it wasn't the current trend. So it didn't get lost in all the other noise. And so I think when you know enough and you're kind of ingrained in this space, you'll see what trends are happening. And that's a perfect opportunity to look elsewhere, to look what's the opposite, what's the other thing that people aren't talking about, what's the other thing that people aren't sharing. That's something that's very key, and that's very a skill to have, an awareness to have as a director and a filmmaker. That could be something that will make you stand out. Not to say that's going to guarantee you success, but it'll be something that's different. Now, if client wants the current trend, client's going to client, right? So yeah, just something to be aware of. Now, professionalism. Now, what does professionalism mean to me? And again, you can add to this. You can share your thoughts of what you think professionalism is as well. But what I'm going to list is no in particular order. Your values define the clients that you attract and the projects you take on, shaping the reputation you build. Now, that might sound like you're boxing yourself in, but if you're spread too thin, you won't have a place or a voice. And especially if you're working with agencies, agencies are trying to figure out where they can fit you when they try to sell you to clients and things like that. If you're on a director's roster, I should clarify that. If you're on a director's roster, knowing the tone and the voice of that particular director is going to be very important to how they're going to sell you to clients. And so when you can figure out what you actually like and what you want to say and what you want to speak to, that's going to help greatly. Moving on from that point, let's say you land a job. How do you treat the collaboration process is another layer that's going to be extremely important. If you are disorganized, if you lack communication, if you're not just being open to everything that's available, granted, it depends on the type of client you're working with. Some are more stuck up than others. Some don't really want to have, joking manner. It all depends how you can read the room. But those things are very key of how you contribute to the collaboration process. If you show the effort, if you show the commitment to that job, it's going to make the agency and the client feel way more comfortable for awarding you that job in this process. Expand your toolbox intentionally. You don't have to chase every trend. However, you should pay attention to them, absorb the good ones at least. So you'll have a nice toolbox to pull from when the time comes. When a treatment lands on your job and they say, how we're going to achieve this, the agency has some ideas of some trends that they like or whatever that is. And then you can come in and try to tweak it, try to perfect it, try to better it. That's your job as a director. And so, because at the end of the day, you are trying to sell the client's product. That's why they're being hired. Now, there'll be jobs where you can speak to something fully in your control, and those are the things that you celebrate. Those are the things that you want to put in your reel. Sometimes you need to just pay the bills, eat your vegetables, and that's great too. So it's not to say that all trends are bad. I'm not saying that at all. but be intentional of what you put in your toolkit to pull from, what you like, and things like that. So you're constantly being a student in this space, as we all are. Solve problems without drama. This is can be hard for many. Um, Conflict is not everybody's strong suit. Uh, I enjoy it because I like figuring out problems. I've gotten better at it over the years. But conflict and drama always hides itself in the schedule, honestly. What do you do when gear fails? What do you do when someone actually didn't delete something? What do you do when the client isn't happy about this or something falls through? Like, what do you do in this time? And for me personally, I always pray. I say a prayer to myself, and then the Lord gives me clarity and things to move on. Luckily, too, I have, either I'm working with Caleb or Niles or Taylor, or it's all of us, we have a buddy system that we can cling to work through, to talk through things, to figure out solutions. Not everybody has that opportunity as single directors, and I get that. But a most recent thing that happened this past year, Caleb and I were directing the Home Depot social campaign, and he and I were the directors, and I was the DP as well. And so we had sort of a hybrid system in terms of assistance. So we had a swing and an AC and a second AC, who was also a hybrid of a didding for us. And I'm not going to say any names, no, nothing to call it out. But this is a situation that happened: is that once we wrapped, we were started early in the morning, and we wrapped the first board within about 30 to 40 minutes or so. And we're switching out the set and everything, and we gave the phone, we're working on phones, to the person who was dumping footage. They accidentally deleted the footage. I didn't ask him how, but they accidentally deleted the footage, and he came to me. He just looked pale in the face, and yeah, I felt I was like, holy crap. But at the same time, I had to take a moment, because I looked at him, I was like, crap, he's expecting this director to unleash the fury on him and make a whole big scene and blame him for everything. That was not the way I was going to go about it. I pulled Caleb aside. I told him, like, hey, that somehow the files got deleted. We need to do the take again. And we talked to our line producer. She freaked out, but it's like, we have time. Luckily, we had a really good line producer who took care of that schedule really well, but we had to make up time pretty quick. So let's say that was a real dry run. Yeah. But how we approached it, I told him, hey, it's fine. Let's just get this up and running. Let's get this done quickly, and so we can move on, so this doesn't hold up for the rest of the day. So things like that are just, doesn't always happen. Deleting footage, that's just crazy. But it happened. And how you respond to that is going to be really key when you are in a position like I am. So long story short, but yeah. I already did touch on this, but communication from start to finish is going to help align the team. It's going to help you align agency and client. It's going to help you align what's going to be happening on set. Being clear of what's happening and knowing what's happening is going to be your greatest asset, and be able to clearly communicate that on all levels. Yeah, I think there's no more to say about that, to be honest. I'm going to quickly go back to style, and I like to use this analogy when I talk about style, or visual style, or however you want to put that, versus taste. So I have, just like many of you, spent years stressing about my visual style. What will my work say? And again, I think it is important. It's not the most important, but let's still talk about it. I've already made an analogy that visual style was like a toolbox, but I'm also going to give you another one where it's also like a cookbook, a book of recipes, because we have so much information out there in our fingertips. It is just kind of like, what do you want? And you pull it out. Sometimes that can be dangerous, because the client wants, yeah, I want exactly that. That's honestly no fun at all. But this gives you the opportunity to practice your taste. Your taste is like adding the seasonings to flip it on its head a little bit, to give it a little bit more spice, to mellow it out, whatever that looks like, whatever direction you want to go. Your taste is the real influence of a particular style, the thumbprint that you want to say. And I think that's the best way I can actually communicate that. Because sometimes once a board comes our way and they want in this particular style, is how do we add flavor to this? And that's what's going to make the changes. That's what we get to say. This is like our work because we were able to work with this idea, but also bend it to how we see and how we see the vision through and through. But to open up this even more, style is more than just a look. It's also used as how do you build a story from beginning to end? Like, what are the elements that you like to use? What is the practices or the philosophy you like to think about? Those things that help shape the story as you're building it. How do you work with talent on screen, with non-talent and real talent? Like, how do you get the best emotion out of them? That's a skill set there. And how do you think about contrasting elements, or do you keep everything vanilla? Like, all of those are part of a style. And it's not just visual, it's bigger than that, because as a director, you have a voice over everything from start to beginning. Even though you were given these boards and try to tweak it, but now you have an opportunity to figure out how to get to A to B or B to C or C. You had to figure out those turning points as you are building and working with these clients. So yeah, I know this video is probably not going to do well, but I would greatly appreciate it if you would, again, like this video, share this video. If there's anything that was valuable, let me know in the comments below. YouTube has this new thing called hype. Hype me up if you would.
Gotta hype me up.
Like, that was really bad. Cool. All right, y'all. Catch you on the next one.